Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we're going to be diving down into the world of Vechain to see and talk specifically about the price action of VET. We've seen some pretty good traction. We're going to see if it's going to continue and what might be on the horizon next. As we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with all that said, done, and out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, guys, so here we are on the weekly chart for Vechain, and we just want to kind of start off trying to highlighting what's going on here from the bigger view, right? Because it's always important to zoom out and actually pay attention to this overview of how Vechain is performing and where things are going. Okay, and so something that we talk about quite a bit on the channel. So if you are familiar, then feel free just to shoot ahead. If you're new to the channel, then do stick around for the next couple of minutes just so you can understand the structure of Vechain here. So basically, the entire bull run is basically comprised of Elliott impulsive waves. Okay, there are 5 of these: wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, these basically this particular pattern it comprises of 3 up waves: 1, 3, and 5, and it has 2 down trends, okay, wave 2 and wave 4. Okay, this is something that's pretty basic, and again, we've been tracking this for quite some time. Was confirmed when we actually confirmed wave 4 not going down lower than wave 1. Okay, one of the basic rules when it comes to Elliott theory, and specifically these impulsive waves to the upside, right? It's important that wave 4 does not cross wave 1. Okay, so we know that that's the kind of the direction that things are going in. Now, obviously, we know that there are 5 impulsive moves to the upside. We can actually use this to our advantage and help predict out where our last leg is going to go. Where does wave 5 actually finish? Now, wave 5, in our opinion, is going to finish around $1.20, depending on whether or not there's a fundamental shift, right? So obviously, the technical data inside the crypto space, is great if things are consistent, okay? But obviously the crypto space moves quite rapidly and quite fast. Therefore, you get volatility, not only because of the market cap being relatively small and there's not a lot of money here, but also because people are innovating continuously and you get new things that are actually launching to the ecosystems that, either impact it positively or negatively. And as such, the price action will also represent that. Okay, so right now, based on the trends that we're seeing with Vechain, and the fact that there's no fundamental shifts just yet, there is some stuff in the pipeline that might be interesting to see how this actually, progresses with the price. But if nothing were to change, we have $1.20. This is based on the downward trend for wave 2, the upward trend for wave 3, and the downward trend for wave 4. Okay, they take those 3 trends into consideration: the lower 2, the higher 3, the lower 4. Take all 3, and you end up with this trend-based fib coming out at 4.236 at $1.20. Okay, so we know that the bull run's got quite a bit of traction still left in it. Now, Vechain has potentially been slower, and I know it frustrates some people in the space. Specifically when you start seeing things like Solana going quite fast, rapidly to the upside, right, setting all-time highs, etc. Now, obviously, money rolls around this space, right? Some new money comes in, but it's not as much as rolling out of some projects into other projects. Now, this actually happens just because people are chasing those green candles. So it's important that we acknowledge that people are basically just constantly chasing the money, and that isn't exactly the best strategy, at least not what we find on the channel. We find actually making sure you make your investments in the bear market and stop trying to chase during a bull run. Instead, just make sure you have a good strategy about how you manage the bull run, manage your expectations, and do not get too greedy, as in, potentially get in later, get out early, or make sure you're around in the bear market, accumulate in the bear market, have your targets set in the bear market, and then you can just execute your strategy and your plan in the bull run without the reactions or emotions in the space. So overall for Vechain, yes, some of those frustrations have been seen, but it's been a very, very good performer, right? So from March, I think it was March 2020, up to the highs of April 2021, 399 days, 18,295%. To put that into context, Bitcoin only moved 1,600% for that time period. Ethereum 5,100. So we already know that it's done over 3 times more gains have been made with Vechain than Ethereum, and you might not like that. You might not, like to hear that kind of thing, but that simply is the fact. Ethereum and Bitcoin are not very good performers for a portfolio. They're considered safer bets because they're not going to disappear anytime soon. They can obviously get into altcoins that are completely scams or rug pulls, etc., and there's higher risk there. But when you actually start thinking about gains with Vechain, it's been around for a very long time, very reputable brand, and reputable, blockchain technology. it's not going anywhere. It's one of those projects that actually I'm pretty comfortable with, knowing that it's definitely not going anywhere. It's heavily integrated with huge enterprises globally, right? So it's definitely not high risk, in my opinion, in the regard of it disappearing, but it is high risk and potentially, you're getting in at the top of a bull run and having to carry your bags through a bear market, right? So obviously important to understand where we are in a cycle, and that's kind of what we're trying to get at with this weekly chart, right? We are approaching the last leg of the cycle, and as such, the gains from where we are right now is going to be less than 10 times, right? It's not going to be a 10x from here by the time we see the end of this bull run. It's not based on the trends that we're currently seeing. Okay, so we have to manage those expectations. Okay, so the weekly chart is a bit of a cheat sheet. It allows us to see the scope of the bull run and where things are likely to end. And timing is always the hardest thing, but we are saying, roughly Q1 of 2022. Okay, so if you're ever in doubt and you're invested in Vechain, zoom right the way out to the weekly and see the structure. Everything's looking very, very good. Okay, so there is a cup and handle pattern kind of forming. This goes out to some of the interesting areas around the 786, which we'll get into in a moment. But obviously, it hasn't played out just yet. So let's jump down into our daily, and this is where we start to get into some more of the interesting stuff that's going on now. Just for the argument's sake, and I'm going to assume that people are very familiar with Elliott theory and impulsive waves. If not, do some more research on them. But basically, we're zoomed out on the weekly chart here, right? Just before we go into that daily. And it's important that we acknowledge that inside each of these waves are going to be waves. Okay, so for example, our fifth wave here will be made up of 5 impulsive waves in itself, right? Okay, so it's important that we acknowledge that. Now, obviously, inside each of those waves, there'll be waves and so forth, right? Normally, you find ABC corrections inside your waves 4 and waves 2, okay, because they're correction moves. And then in your impulsive moves, such as 1, 3, and 5, again, you would find yourself with basically these impulsive moves, right? These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. Okay, so it's important that we acknowledge that, because as we come down into our daily chart, we actually have such an example playing out, right? We have wave 1. This was basically end of July going up into September, and then pull back in September. That completes wave 2. Now we can push up into wave 3, and obviously we're starting to see that traction really come in. We've put this up here on the 2.618, coming in at 64 cents. But again, no one really knows where that's going to land just yet. And again, there'll be a fourth wave correction pulling back down before we get into that last leg for wave 5. Okay, so again, every single time you look at this at different levels, there's going to be additional different waves to be paying attention to. Now, I don't want to confuse too many people, but ultimately things are looking very, very good for Vechain. And again, we can't confirm that it's impulsive until we get to the top of wave 3 and start to analyze where wave 4 is going to go down to. Wave 4 cannot cross wave 1, remember, okay? So it's important that we don't cross down any lower than that. So again, we won't know for sure until we get to that point, but it's looking pretty good from this kind of perspective right now. So I'm going to quickly remove that so it doesn't cloud our judgment too much. But obviously the daily chart here is looking pretty good. Now the Fibonacci retracement tool on our daily is different to that of the Fibonacci retracement that we have on our weekly. This one actually just runs from the top of wave 3 and the bottom of wave 4, right? This one trend to the downside. So this downtrend, then Bitcoin was at 65k down to 28k. That's the one trend that we're paying attention to. This actually shows us out with a 4.236 extension of $1.01. So again, a more conservative target to be hitting, and it's where we put our fifth wave, because I think it's important that we sell on the way up, guys, right? We don't want to just save our bags all for one particular price point. We want to sell on the way up, and we don't want to sell on the way down. Sounds pretty basic, but you'll find yourself, at least a lot of people in the space will find themselves, basically not hitting their targets and thinking it is going to $2, $3, $5, wherever, right? And it's not backed up by the technicals here, at least anyway. So what they find is they hold their bags and they don't sell, they don't lock in any profits on the way up. They save 100% of their bag until it hits one price point, and then they think they're going to sell. And instead what happens is it moves up, doesn't meet their target, and then it starts falling down, okay, and it falls down, and people hold and they sell on the way down. They panic sell on the way down, in fact. So it's important that we don't do that, obviously, during the bear run. And if you do find yourself in the situation where you find the tops come in and you're still holding a bag and you want to get rid of it, you don't sell on the way down, right? Everything bounces. Nothing will move in straight lines. This is something that you see all the time. Here is an example. We started to pull back here within our fourth wave correction. We went all the way down to 13 cents from a high of 28 cents. We bounced up, we got to 23 cents. Then we fell down even further. We bounced up again, just short of 16 cents. We fell down further. Okay, so it's important that you acknowledge that we don't move in straight lines. In fact, we just bounce around until we find the bottom. Okay, so opportunities, don't sell on the way down. wait for a bounce, sell the bounce, and you'll be good if you happen to be in that situation, which we're trying to avoid, obviously. We want to inform you guys to be trying to lock those profits in on the way up. Okay, make sure you've at least pulled your initial investment out on the journey to the upside and use the Fibonacci retracement tool to your advantage. Okay, so enough of that. Let's actually start talking about what's going on in the market, right? Because cup and handle, we've been talking about this for a while. It is there. It is still kind of valid, although it's been a bit slow and it had pulled back quite significantly. So it's one of those things where the cup and handle patterns, they're only 60 to 70% accurate, and therefore it's important that we acknowledge that sometimes they do deviate away. We're still on track for it, but obviously the more time that passes, the harder it is to say that we are going to complete the cup and handle. Instead, we're just getting good traction to the upside, right? And right now, obviously, the cup and handle pattern does come in at 22.1 cent. That is the target for that. That puts it just above the 702 area of the chart and just below the 786 area of the chart, right? And ultimately, what we're really trying to do is get above the 786, which is a big bull flag, which will then take us into new all-time highs. But we are starting to heat the system up and starting to move in that direction, which is good news to see. Okay, so from the current price, we're approximately 540% pushed to that $1 threshold. Okay, so based on our current trading position, you can tell that it's not even a 10x from here. So it's important that we acknowledge that as well. On the daily chart, everything's actually looking pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to jump over to partners of the channel, advice.io. If you're not familiar, there's a link in the description down below. It's completely free to use. Do sign up because I don't think you're going to be disappointed. You're going to learn a lot more about your cryptocurrencies from advice.io, specifically when they talk about things that you do not normally see inside the charts themselves. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at Vechain specifically on the platform. Now, they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us understand that data that sits behind the charts. Okay, so we have a couple of green arrows just here indicating that the rating has actually moved up from a B1 rating to an A3 rating. This is actually very good news for Vechain. Basically, this is indicating that actually the underlying data is looking pretty bullish for Vechain. Now, we can obviously go into some more specifics on this. So when we come down, we have a fear and greed index that is an A3 cryptocurrency rating right now. So an A3 rating for the fear and greed index. This is not your Bitcoin index. This is a fear and greed index that's been derived by the AI and ML for Vechain specifically, right? So we're pretty greedy right now for Vechain, and we can see that we had pulled back massively yesterday, okay? And obviously we saw the correction, and now we're actually pushing right the way back up again. So profits were taken, now we're back in the game. The AMI-HAD ratio shows us an A2 rating. This basically is indicating there's no problems with liquidity. Buying and selling Vechain, not a problem. And again, this is something that we actually were acknowledging quite a bit. I think it was in September. There were liquidity-based problems across the board for many cryptocurrencies, including Vechain, i.e. you couldn't necessarily buy, okay? And, selling seemed to be a little bit easier than potentially buying. But the liquidity-based problems, they could have been one or two centralized exchanges or even decentralized exchanges that were causing the problem. Obviously, it's good to see that the issues have been resolved and there is no liquidity-based problems for Vechain, where i.e. buying and selling Vechain is pretty fluid and there is no issue with that. So that's good to see. And as we come down, we have a Sharpe ratio. This is an A2 rating. Now, the Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio, and the rewards outweigh the risks, i.e. we might want some exposure to VET in the coming kind of days and weeks, right? So this is something that we've been tracking for a while. As you can see, the 50-day average is the red line. We've been above the 50-day average pretty much since late September, looking pretty good. And there was only really this kind of small blip down here where ultimately you might not have wanted to have some exposure to Vechain. It was very, very small. And then we started to really move up to the upside in a really good way. So again, looking very good from a risk-reward ratio perspective. The moving averages are an A2, again, 10, 50, and 100-day moving averages, not a problem. And the profitability is right up there as an A1. It's obviously the best rating that this platform can give it, as I indicated earlier, right? Significantly outperformed Bitcoin and Ethereum. So looking very, very good from an underlying data perspective, right? And advice.io, that artificial intelligence machine learning, it's been right more times than I can count. So if you're not already signed up, definitely go ahead and do it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So as we jump back to the charts here for Vechain, what we can do is actually jump into our hourly view. Now, the hourly view allows us to see some of those recent moves that have been happening, and we can see the good surge that we had pretty much from the 3rd of November, pushing up. We obviously were analyzing some rejection points. We found rejection at 15.2, pulling down to 14.5. surging up to 16.2, pulling back down to the 15.2 cent support level. Okay, so right now we're looking for good traction here. Everything's lining up quite nicely. If we throw the volume on, what you can find is basically as we've corrected the price down, we've also lowered the volume. That is that sentiment in the space what advice picking up on. It's basically that actually we're looking very greedy. We're not fearful. If it was fearful, as the price was falling, the volume would have been growing, as in loads of people are willing to sell and not buy. But instead, what you actually see is a sentiment where we need to see the correction happen. A very few people are actually willing to sell, and instead what you find are people willing to buy. Okay, so now what we're looking for is that reversal, right? So now we're stabilizing where we are. We've got the stochastic in a nice area. We're looking to grow the volume, grow the price, and take out that 16.2. So the next thing that we're looking for is a surge up to 17.7 cent. And a pullback to 16.2 to confirm the previous resistance is now support. Okay, so we're looking for that kind of motion to the upside. Okay, I think this is something that is likely to occur. Again, we are tracking inside multiple different waves. So again, we'll be monitoring that. Now, we're not looking on here impulsive at the moment. We are just looking for ABC moves continuously through this. And obviously on that journey, we are obviously moving up nicely towards our 618.702. And of course, that cup and handle 22.1 cent zone, which we'll talk about, as time progresses. But right now, yep, we're definitely looking pretty good. We want to be taking out the 16.2 cent area. We just need to grow the volume, grow the stochastic, get that taken out, head towards 17.7, and then do expect a pullback. Now, of course, if we don't get the momentum that we need, we can of course raise the stochastic and find further resistance at 16.2, and then really test out their 15.2 as a support line for us. We want to hold that support, so do be cautious that if we actually start to rise the stochastic without actually doing any good price discovery or no good volume comes in, it stays relatively flat over the weekend, then we should be really trading sideways along 15.2 cent. And basically making sure that this is a nice strong support level before we have that surge to the upside. Okay, so obviously the weekend, with the market being the way that it is right now at the point of recording this video, it's important that we acknowledge that we could potentially just be trading sideways between these key areas of 15.2 and 16.2 until, maybe even Monday when the market starts to heat up again. So again, interesting times do lie ahead here for Vechain. I do expect some volatility on the smaller time frames, but everything on the underlying data is looking very good. If we're ever in doubt, we always zoom out to that weekly. It's a bit of a cheat sheet, allows us to see the structure that is going on for the bull run, where we expect things to really peak out with Vechain towards the end. So guys, I'm going to leave this video there. If you have found it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next.